Welcome to Complaints on a Podcast. I'm joined again by Heather. Hello, Heather.
Hello, Daniel.
And Claudia, of course.
Hello.
We're gonna do a little bit of banter like they do on Novara. So, Heather, how was your day?
Oh my goodness, I wasn't ready for that question. It's got
to be quick. How was your day, Heather?
It was great.
Okay, great. Claudia, how was your day? Heather, that's enough. Claudia, how was your day?
Fantastic. How was your day, Daniel?
It was great. Thank you very much. Claudia knows how to do it. That's how Novara do it. It's like, how are you? All the better of seeing you. Great. Okay, now onto the story. They're very and that's what we've got to be like. So we'll do it again. Hello, welcome to Complaints on Podcast. Heather, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Daniel?
I'm very well, Claudia.
I'm very well, thank you. How are you, Daniel?
I'm fantastic. Now, onto our top story. Glastonbury, the banning of the big lie. What do you make about that, Heather?
So it's interesting. You've brought Novara in. So Michael Walker, who is the main presenter of their shows now, is he?
Yeah.
Right. So he tweeted something like, "I haven't seen The Big Lie, and I'm not really into banning things, but it's a really terrible title. It has multiple reference points, but one of the reference points is to Nazi propaganda." But the things which are interesting is following up from that, Aaron Bastani quote tweeted Mick Hucknall, I think it was, from Simply Red, slagging off the film, saying it's a bad title and that kind of thing.
Well, that's only what people only slag off that because no one's seen it.
Yeah, he's not seen it. So Aaron Bastani's like, how come there's all these middle-aged men slagging off a film they haven't seen? And it's like, do you not realize the guy you employed to do your main show did that yesterday?
I was reading about Hitler because, obviously we're big fans of Hitler on this channel. And Hitler went to Italy once, actually. And someone asked him, what's your favorite town in Italy? And he said, it's Novara, Medea. I wrote that. Isn't that good? That's my preparation for this podcast, was writing that joke. So today we're not going to talk about Glastonbury the whole time. We're going to talk about the really important things that are happening in the world, which are not, as you might think, nukes in Belarus or the Bank of England creating a recession to fight inflation. No, the important things are, of course, what sign you have on your toilet. That's important, and who can play in your sports team. So let's get into it. Today we're going to solve the trans issues. Multiple issues that people have with trans people. We're going to solve them all in this handy guide, starting by looking at an article from Spiked, which I'm just going to find now, which I have up on my computer.
By Julie Burchell, called "Beware the Wolves in Use Clothing. The Trans Women in Prisons row has exposed the sheer derangement of the modern left."
Do you read Spiked? I only ever read these articles when you send them to me, and I should read it more because it's incredible, this publication.
I don't read Spiked, actually, but the one which I do read regularly now is a Jewish Chronicle for my sins, to try and keep up, because I think there is a value in looking at these right-wing publications, what they focus on and how.
Yeah, because this article is incredible, right? So it starts off, trust the Italians to know what a woman is. The land where the twin peaks of femininity are the mama and the sex bomb has a separate jail exclusively for trans women. Could this be the answer to the gender-bending get into jail free cards that are currently causing a kerfuffle here in Britain? I like the whole thing of it, like the language in this, like calling it a kerfuffle. It's all kind of like tongue-in-cheek, but then just like really, really, really seriously wants basically trans people to all be killed. It's kind of like mad.
Yeah. Oh, let's just point out that she starts with the classic binary of the Madonna and the whore.
Yeah.
Which is a nice way for her to start an article which is allegedly feminist.
Yeah. So she goes on, converted from a former women's prison in 2010, this jailhouse rocks. Not only is it near Florence, handy for those art appreciating days out, but it also has a library, recreation centre, football pitch, and agricultural land, which produces olive oil and wine. Inmates have their own rooms for those private little feminine toilet moments, such as rinsing one's scrotum, and are given personal development plans. According to the Herald, I don't know if these are about hair, makeup, and wardrobe, which trans women seem to believe are all you need to change sex, or something more profound. But anyway, it sounds about as boutique as a penitentiary can be. I bet they've even got a couple of those big seashells on the reception desk.
I have to mention the elephant in the room here, right? For those private little feminine toilet moments, such as rinsing one's scrotum, right? There's this whole vibe to this woman's worldview and people like her, where they act like women are these pure, clean beings, and we would never do anything gross. We don't sweat. We don't have to wash ourselves. Like, it drives me mad. Like, it's so sexist in itself. Like that notion that we're just like these naturally like clean and wonderful people. Like, do you feel that, Heather? Like, it just makes me feel weird.
Yeah, so I think there's a fixation on biology that we've got on bodies, which is definitely there. But also, you're absolutely. I think part of the problem is like the way in which a lot of straight men relate to women is through this idealized idea of women's bodies, as if they're not real, they don't sweat, we don't go to the toilet even. It's so fucked up. There's a poem from centuries ago which does this, where this guy is like idealizing this woman and suddenly realizes that she has all these kind of bits to her body which are just like, not in his imagination, and he gets totally shocked and totally disillusioned. And it's a terrible thing, because it means you can't have good relationships between men and women if there's that idealization happens.
Birchall goes on, in the current trans debate, both sides see their humanity and dignity disrespected by either of the options on offer. Make people with penises use male facilities, even if they answer to Penelope. Allow female facilities to be swamped in male genitalia. Yet, whenever a third way is suggested, like the Italian prison solution, it's notable that the trans activists get very cross indeed. This is telling. If they really fear male violence in public conveniences or other sex-segregated spaces as much as they claim, a third option would be perfectly acceptable to them. But if their desire is to gain access to women's private spaces, then they will hold out for that option. I like that the dual meaning there of private spaces is good.
Well, I think, just briefly again, the fixation on biology is parrot, but the thing which this adds in is basically saying that the only motive that you can have, it's not interested in trans men. There's always a fixation on trans women, right?
Mm-hmm.
The only motive you can have for being a trans woman is to get access to women's spaces. It can't, and for dodgy motives, you can't want them just because you are a woman and therefore you should be in them. That is completely written out of possibility.
Yeah, I mean, Heather, I feel like we've spoken about this before, but also the crazy thing is that, like, in a women's toilets, you go in a cubicle. You're in a private cubicle. You're not looking at other people's genitalia. That's not something that happens. I think there's this weird mythology surrounding what goes on in a woman's toilet, which is just not true. It's I'm sure it's the same as the men's. You just go in and go to the toilet.
The imagery is just someone basically taking a piss in the corner of the toilet, right, with a penis, right, just standing up.
Just washing their genitals.
Just right there,
in the sink.
Like, I would be just as disturbed should someone with a vagina do that in front of me in a public toilet.
I take offense. It's basically about people with penises just can't go to the toilet. They're just like, they just have issues. As soon as they get in there, they just like strip off, just start pissing all over the place. And that some people like that, but most people aren't. And that's a problem we need to solve together. I mean, this is the thing. I think it's the same thing with all the stuff, like the stuff about prisons. Like this is something, I think about often with Me Too. When Me Too sort of came about, what clocked in my mind was like basically my whole life there'd been a joke about casting couches, and it was kind of funny, right? Oh, I wonder what she had to do for that job. And it's like, that's kind of funny in this abstract way. But then hearing someone's personal story about actually being confronted with that situation, it's like, oh, fucking hell. And it's the same thing with prisons. It's like, well, the prisons, well, it sounds pretty good, but it'll probably get raped in the toilet or whatever. Like rape is part of the punishment, basically, in a male prison. It's like accepted. Like, I don't know how widespread it is, but it's certainly seen as being basically a given, right? And it
Yes,
certainly
there's a
does
really
happen.
good- There's a really
right?
good video by Pop Culture Detective where he looks at the way in which the rape of men in prison is used as a gag in television. and
Yeah,
film.
it's a gag. Yeah, I mean, as soon as you bring up prison, it's the first thing that people talk about, and it's like, what? But what it does is it means it just no one is concerned with that issue about solving that as a problem. Like it is a widespread problem across prison systems in the world, and it's like, but what can we do? Well, let's try and tackle it. Let's even like actually just someone who's involved in the government, looking after this sort of situation, actually question them about it and say, can we not look into this issue? And that's the sort of thing here. It's like the idea is that, well, obviously, if you send someone to prison and they've got a penis, they're going to rape people. It's like, well, why is that the case?
Yeah.
Why are prisons such a terrible place for people in general?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's also this thing that a lot of transphobic people, and I don't know, obviously I'm from the LGBT community myself, and you get quite a lot of this in the community. So there's quite a lot of crossover between like biphobia and transphobia. And my theory is that it's about proximity to a penis, right? Because it's like, so for example, you might receive biphobia because it's the idea, that old notion that a woman is tainted forever and stained by a penis in some way. And trans women are, the fact that they might have a penis is like stained and tainted them. It's that idea, isn't it, of like pure womanhood, which doesn't involve any sort of penises. Like it's weird. It's really obsessive. Like, I just find that odd as someone who's cisgender and bi. I've noticed that, and it's helped me understand a lot of my trans friends when they kind of talk about this stuff, because it's like, okay, yeah, I can see that whole situation.
It's really odd. And if like you look back at early feminist stuff, like second wave, 1970s, 80s, a lot of it was about saying, look, a lot of power is attached to penises or symbolically to the phallus, and that there was lots of psychoanalytic stuff around that. And it seems like that is giving that power back.
Yeah.
It's kind of saying that this the penis or the phallus or whatever you want to kind of say, whether it's real or it's symbolic, is so powerful that it can taint someone, that it can damage. It's kind of bizarre that feminists would want to concede that power rather than to challenge it and to just say, well, this is just a bit of someone's body, right? And yeah, it's infused with a lot of power in society, but that's something we need to kind of question rather than to reinforce.
Yeah.
Birchall goes on to say, only a very silly person indeed believes that trans women are only ever shrinking violets who just want to press wildflowers and urinate sitting down. Many of them are dirty great bruisers who could easily work as bouncers if the bottom fell out of the sissy porn market. Make no mistake, trans rights is the first liberation movement both inspired and fueled by pornography. Various ages and trials of a woman's life can be sexualized. From the trans predilection for dressing up as little girls, to the ghastly fake babies, don't ask, which allow men to ape gestation and childbirth. Lesbians, of course, are the most loved and hated targets of these autogynephiles, which is thoroughly in line with porn-scored desires. It's a difficult paragraph to read. It's hard to follow that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've got the only a very silly person, that kind of tone. It's like, it's comedic, and then it goes into some of the most awful implications imaginable. It makes you very confused. But it's also, the idea that only a very silly person indeed believes that trans women are only ever shrinking violets who just want to press wildflowers and urinate sitting down. Is the assumption here that that's what cisgender women are like? Because can't we be like dirty great bruisers? Right? And what does that mean for, I'm kind of like going a little bit off this, but cisgender lesbians who are more butch presenting, they're the ones who are going to be also hurt by this, right? This policing of femininity, and it hurts everyone. I can't understand who it benefits at all.
Well, and the porn angle is wild, because it's like people that like thousands of years people have been trans, right? inside or outside, depending on the site that they're in, right? But it's this idea that the whole movement is basically just some men's, it's almost like conspiratorial, like there's some men at the top of like secretly trying to control society to make it reflect their pornographic desires. You know, like we're going to get loads of like sort of people in prisons and all around the world in jobs and offices, all like dressed up for our sissy porn fantasies, so that wherever we go, we can be aroused. It's kind of incredible.
It is. I mean, this is the thing which I really struggle to understand what exactly she's saying about pornography, what the argument is, because clearly pornography now and before, forever, has basically been male fantasies about women, right? I mean, it's more complicated than that. I don't want to, you know, there's clearly porn that women make themselves, that women like to consume, that there's gay porn. It isn't that reductive, but to a great extent,
gay porn is still male fantasies.
Yeah, but not about women in quite the same way. But a lot of male porn is just male fantasies about women, which are very damaging and very constraining and very, you know. But in some ways, I think trans identities disrupt male fantasies.
They do.
About sex. In some ways, this is a movement which is against those kind of horrific things that we see embedded in a lot of pornography. And that's one of the reasons why I think as feminists, this is a good thing that the ideas about gender and sexuality are becoming way more complicated. We should really, on purely selfish grounds, this is a good thing, I think, as feminists who've always wanted gender to be unstable and not to determine what happens in our lives.
I think that's a good way of framing it. You should write an article about that, about how it's all to the benefit of you, because that's what these sort of people respond to. It's got to be about, where are my rights? What are my benefits from this situation? Yeah, if you frame it like that. Yeah.
Other benefit, you don't have to queue for the toilet anymore.
Yeah, that's a worry that I am a bit concerned about with trans rights, which is that I'll no longer be like the easy access toilet for men, you know, at festivals and stuff, and we'll all have to join the terrible line. So yeah, if I don't know how we can get around that. I mean, maybe just have more toilets.
Yes.
In general.
What would have happened if men were queuing ages ago was we would add more toilets, because women were
probably
queuing,
true.
Time was not seen as important. We were just told to queue.
But also, like with the toilet thing, something just came into my head as well. Like, if you're like out with your dad, so when I was a little girl, my mum and dad are separated. If I was out with my dad, the sort of stress and danger that it kind of puts you in as well, that I couldn't be taken into the men's with him. He couldn't come into the women's with me. It was having to find a woman who looked safe to say, would you, you know, help my daughter and make sure she's all right.
There might be a trans woman. The most dangerous people.
Right, that's it. Handed me straight into their clutches. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, it doesn't make people safer at all.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about, I mean, the toilet thing is just wild. I mean, so many places, particularly sort of smaller, you know, independent places that you want to keep going, they only have one toilet.
I only have one toilet at my home, to be honest. And I let men use it as well.
Oh yeah, I think I want to get it to when what's his face? Who's the guy that was burning pride flags the other day?
Oh, Lawrence Fox.
Yeah. When he starts installing 2 toilets in his house. Did you see the thing about, I can't remember anyone's name. Who's the guy? Who's the guy from the One Show?
Which one?
The main guy, Adrian
Charles.
Adrian Charles, yeah. He wrote an article about the fact that he has a urinal in his house. Like installed in, so he's got a toilet and then next to it he's got a urinal. And then Will Self, there's an article that you should definitely read by Will Self, which is all about Adrian Charles's penis, based on that article. It's really good. Someone else wrote an article. The way I got it, and someone like wrote an article in the Independent or something, saying there's a career-ending article by Will Self. I was like, no, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Anyway, let's not get too distracted. There's
But we'll put links to all these amazing articles in the description below this video.
Yeah, it's actually far more interesting than this argument. The whole thing with this argument, right, is like giving it traction the way that, say, Keir Starmer and you know the Labour leadership are now. Is you're losing the battle by taking this stuff seriously at all, right? Because if you're contesting like people's basically allowed to exist in spaces, then you've already lost the argument. It shouldn't be like, I was thinking about this. Well, let's flip it, right? I was talking about like my male fantasies about Julie Birchall, you know, having a job in a workspace with me. I'm like, that's, you know, that's my male fantasy about like having women in the workspace. Maybe she gets like stuck in the photocopier, like bent over, and then, you know, I can like, but it's like, basically maybe women shouldn't be allowed to have jobs. It's too, you know, it's too tempting, right? I think maybe women should just stay at home.
But
And
isn't that the Jordan
let's
Peterson
discuss
argument?
that. Sorry?
Yeah. It's not the Jordan Peterson argument.
Yeah, it
pretty
is. Like
much,
women
yeah.
shouldn't wear makeup. They should be covered, actually, I think, entirely. Stay at home. Certainly shouldn't have jobs in the fucking media and write articles in newspapers. Let's discuss that endlessly and endlessly, questioning whether women should be allowed to do this or that. And you can see, right, even just having the argument, you've already taken like 100 steps back.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
point. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying, because I'm part of the LGBT community, and I follow a lot of different people from the community, and people who aren't really following politics have suddenly, like, because of Keir Starmer's silence on this, there is like genuine fear and disgust and anger, and I've seen so many people saying never, like, I will not vote for him now at this point, because they're not people who follow politics, but it's like their lives, you know.
Yeah, it is actually interesting how that has really cut through with a lot of people. Because it's just a very clear-cut thing, I think, that people could get their head around. Well, some people, not Julie Birchall.
No, but genuinely, I don't think they're trying to convince us that the public are like really transphobic. But I think if it was explained in a way that wasn't awful, I don't think the public would care. Trans people have existed in society for such a long time. You know, it hasn't, just because it's suddenly become this new scaremongering thing in 5 years. Well, trans people have been around for ages and ages, you know. It's,
I don't think people are actually are transphobic. What is apparent is that a certain portion of the media classes and the political class, and that they're projecting that onto other people who are, you know.
But it's also, it is a useful argument, because it's an area that it basically allows, you have this debate, and people like Starmer can kind of take a position that isn't quite the Tory position, rather than basically moving the debate onto something that is much more important in terms of like what he's actually going to do to change the country. The fact that he refuses to engage in other topics means that he's like sort of allowed this kind of conversation to grow, right? Basically. Like, that's the problem with not being a leader in the way that Starmer isn't. He doesn't ever dictate the national conversation. He just allows it to be dictated to him, and then reacts, often by not doing anything. I think partly because he's
passenger in it,
yeah, and it takes him ages to, like, you know, he has to drink for about a week, and then when he comes out of his stupor, he'll release like a statement. But yeah, it's totally counterproductive. And then the things are always being smart, because like he won't let the Tories attack him on this stuff. Tories wouldn't be able to attack him on this stuff if he was leading the debate by moving into areas that the Tories don't want to talk about. They're uncomfortable for them.
Yeah.
Should we get back to this thing?
Yeah, let's get back to Julie.
Films and television shows set in prisons have always been popular. I don't realize just saying that one sentence. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we can all agree on that. Great. I'm glad we've found a consensus. Whereas men in prison, from Cool Hand Luke to the Shawshank Redemption, will be portrayed as undergoing some spiritual journey. Female jails in TV and film are all about the sex.
She's really weird about prison dramas. I mean, like, the two prison dramas that have most effect on me is Oz, which is a HBO drama set in a male prison, and Orange is the New Black, which is set in a women's prison at Netflix. And I think they're the opposite, actually. There's a huge amount of focus on sex in the male prison drama. There's also a focus on male bodies, actually, male physique. The men are really sexualized in that in lots of interesting ways. And it's a really great drama. It's one of the best shows of all time. I definitely recommend it. But in a way, the sex in Orange is the New Black is really different. there isn't rape happening routinely every week. There isn't the violence, the physicality. It's much more kind of nurturing relationships. These women do go on really long journeys, psychologically, through the seasons. I think it's just she chooses examples. She has to go way back. What she's doing, Call Hand Luke? I mean, what is that? That is like, what was that, 1960s? I don't even know. That's an old film. If that's what you're going back to try and prove your point, you probably haven't got a good point.
Yeah, is Porridge about a spiritual journey? I can't remember how it ends. I mean, they often are at the end.
They have a sequel called Going Straight to Porridge. Claudia's
right. I don't know about that. Deep knowledge, deep Porridge.
Porridge was an old sitcom on BBC, or was it on ITV? I can't even remember. Set in a prison, and it was just like it was Ronnie Barker, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like just some lads mucking around in prison.
Yeah, there was no sex in that, and it was a very kind of family-friendly sitcom from when I was growing up. I guess 70s.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird. You wouldn't see that now.
No.
Family-friendly prison sitcom. All right, so we're not going to read all of this article. I think we basically get the idea of it. But I mean, there's lots of great languages there. Obviously, we'll put a link to it, and you can read through all the rest of the. There's some stuff about nappies that might pique your interest. Heather, have you got anything else to say about this article?
Just that she links it obviously to culture wars and social class. She describes like Labour Party women who support trans women as having luxury beliefs that help their party to lose the red wall, which is a horrible construction of the red wall, as if these are people who, as if there are no trans women and trans men in the red wall, as if there's no different identities, as if it's a very kind of weird construction of the white working class, which is often in Julie Burchill's work. And we need the public intellectual voice of David Baddiel to remind us of this.
Yeah, it's a good segue. So we can't end the podcast without talking about David Baddiel a bit. And he's back. He's back again. He's transformed once more. He's talking about Madonna. He's a bit like Madonna. He goes through various stages. Sometimes that includes being a black man. But anyway, let's have a look at his latest article. David Baddiel, I am not ashamed to be a heterosexual male, in the New Statesman. The comedian on becoming a public intellectual and wanting to be more than the voice for Britain's Jews. But he's already the voice for Britain's Jews. He's done that, but now he's going to be, that's not even an ambition for him anymore. Totally got that in the bag. Now he's going to move on to something even greater. Public intellectual. I was going to say, Heather, we need to get our own public intellectual. So I was thinking maybe we could make you into public intellectual somehow. It seems fairly easy, judging by this article. Just need to take a picture. So the picture on the article is David Baddiel in a forest somewhere, sort of just looking up at the horizon. Got high-minded thoughts, high ideals, way above. He's looking into the clouds. He's a dreamer. He's seeing the big picture. He's above the fray of our everyday thinking, and he's got some great vision, which I'm sure he's going to share with us at some point, although not in this article.
Yeah, obviously I'll go to a forest sometime and get a photo.
Yeah.
I can add to we'll try to aspire to be a public intellectual.
Yeah, I think we should go and just whatever sort of picture David Baddiel gets, we should go and get a picture of you doing the same thing and just make a whole collage. We should make an art show.
I think we should get a pondering picture of you at the top of Rochester Castle, staring out in thought.
Yeah. We'll do it in Rochester. We're all going to Rochester, by the way. And we've now got a reason to do it, which is great. Make Heather Mendick. Yeah, we're going to make
podcast outing. Yeah.
Heather Mendick, intellectual, public intellectual. The other thing you got to do is write a book. I mean, David, I know you've already written books, but
yeah,
you've got to write a book with you on the cover. It's basically a book about yourself.
Okay.
Called Jews Don't Count. Which is what, I was thinking, talking about titles, Jews don't count. That sounds like something Hitler would say. But we were saying, what would your book be called? And we were saying My Struggle, right? That would be but it would be a good title for Heather's book. She has sort of struggled with the Labour Party for a long time. Yeah. And then we thought that would be quite funny. And then we thought, actually, no, it would be a really good title for the book. It would actually work.
Yeah. So we were saying, weren't we? We were talking yesterday, Claudia, and we were saying that the only way to deal with this is to double down. So yes, I am going to call my book the same title as Hitler called his book. Let's give no quarter to these people.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense.
But do you remember, Heather, when you used the word struggle in a tweet once, and that quite literally did happen, the accusations that you were deliberately using the single word struggle as some sort of Nazi.
Did you say struggle or my struggle?
I think I probably said my struggle in a sentence without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It became a whole thing on Twitter. Yeah, you came in to defend me. You were searching Hitler's speeches for things that these other people are saying, which was bizarre.
I mean, that's a great title. My Struggle with the phrase my struggle.
Very meta.
Anyway, should we talk about this David Baddiel thing? I don't have much to say about it. He's a public intellectual now, apparently. So it says, Baddiel is positioning himself as a public intellectual for modern Britain. He was recently named as a visiting professor at Oxford. It's incredible. I don't know what he's visiting on.
Presumably racism. He's an expert on racism now.
Yeah, but no, he's moving beyond that now.
Oh, yeah.
Trans rights.
Atheism.
Baddiel is heavily quoted in the article, talking about himself. He says, "Nobody has had the celebrity journey that I have," he mused. Baddiel, who took from Thatcher-era counterculture comedy clubs an insistence on being solidly authentic, has a malleable knack of producing what the public wants. He has changed in step with a revolution in expectations that has turned the relationship between Britain and its entertainers upside down. So yeah, it's a hard-hitting article about David Baddiel, this where the author just said, "Oh, I'm a public intellectual now." "Oh, are you, David Baddiel? Great." Let me praise you for being that.
Yeah, let me help turn you into one. I mean, this article is so sycophantic. Like, someone says something, but you don't say he said this. You say he mused. Like, that captures this idea of someone who's just a thoughtful, thinking, intellectual person. And then it's really weird because he's solidly authentic, but he produces what the public wants.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
And you've also got Baddiel's arrogance. Nobody has had the celebrity journey that I have. Well, actually, I think a lot of people have. I mean, take his nemesis, Jeremy Corbyn. Jeremy Corbyn's had quite a celebrity journey, really. Had to endure horrific kind of attacks. And I was thinking about celebrities. I've been doing research about McCarthyism and looking at celebrity journeys, if you want to use the J word there. People were, they couldn't work for ages. They couldn't travel out the country for decades because they were classified as traitors because of their political beliefs. And sometimes not even their political beliefs, sometimes a meeting they went to when they were younger. It's crazy. The idea that he went from doing blackface to being an expert on anti-Semitism and writing a book about why he doesn't believe in God is some kind of epic celebrity journey is insane.
But I still can't get my head around, maybe it's just because I don't know his early career, but what is this fabled journey that's so exciting? He was just part of the kind of lad culture comedy thing, right? Football stuff. And then at some point decided that, it's become difficult again to talk about being a man and be a lad. So he's sort of rebranded himself. What's this journey? Am I misunderstanding it?
No, that's it. You got it. There's not really any journey, to be honest. He well, I guess it's what that he was a comedian and now he talks about important things and he's a public intellectual. And so nothing's actually happened, but to make that have any sort of sense, you have to say, well, it must be a massive journey have taken place because it's a big leap from one to the other. But really, yeah, he I don't know, he discovered that he was Jewish, or that it was important to him that he was Jewish. That suddenly became something that he thought about a lot, and then he was like, that's why Jeremy Corbyn can't be prime minister, basically. But yeah, let's just get a few more of the quotes from Baddiel. So he says,
well, there's a bit I like, it just amused me a lot. In the early 1990s, there was a moment where you could find a way of being honest about what it was to be male, to be a man, and to be funny about it. And my question is, when has that not been a thing that men have been able to do? And male comedy, why is he acting like he's some sort of revolutionary person who stood up?
Here. We have a male comedian in this podcast, right?
Right, yeah.
Daniel, do you feel like do you have to deal with that impossibility of being honest about being a man in your comedy?
No, because I'm a nice man, and Baddiel's not, and he's horrible, and he thinks that's intrinsically being a man is being a horrible person, and so he can't express that, and he thinks like, oh well, that's my authentic. But apparently he's also very authentic, as his article says. He's a truth teller.
I have to ask. There's a lot of references in this article to David Baddiel and his thoughts on porn. Can someone just sum that up for me? Like, what's that about?
So he did. The only time I saw this was he did an interview on Holocaust Memorial Day, and as always, our thoughts turn to pornography. I mean, it's like
that was awful. That was
it's
really
the same
awful.
Well, I mean, it's just like the article we read in Spiked, right? I don't know. I mean, it's basically he's a comedian from the 90s. I mean, he's a comedian from any time. Like, stand-up comedians talk about things that are embarrassing, things that people generally don't talk about. So he talks about porn. I don't know, maybe a lot. But certainly
he talked about how much he enjoyed porn.
Yeah,
I think that was the thing. And this is the weird thing, is that they pivot in this Holocaust Memorial Day interview. They very briefly discuss the Holocaust. Then they talk about Jeremy Corbyn at greater length.
Holocaust is boring.
Then they talk about pornography and like, have you had to reevaluate your own commitment to the enjoyment of pornography in relation to how women might feel about that? It's really weird as an interview.
Well, they're trying to catch him out. You see, this is the kind of work. See, the problem with the Baddiel is that he totally doesn't he's totally captured by this woke argument. He thinks that you have to be really woke, and what he thinks by woke means that you can't say that you've ever looked at pornography in your life, or that kind of thing, because that's his sort of understanding of where young people are. And so, and the journalist kind of plays on that by sort of asking him, you've changed your views about a lot of things. Like, you used to joke about pornography. Would you joke about that anymore? And he says that he wouldn't. So maybe now he's thought about that a bit more. He's mused about that, and now he's coming back and he's saying, yeah, for me to be a man, I have to joke about pornography, and I can't do that anymore. But then he's going to write a book. I'm proud about that.
Interesting, isn't it? Because pornography is really different now than when he was growing up, right? So the internet's changed everything. I mean, pornography used to be like, you had to get videos of people, right?
Yeah, you had to get down to the garage.
Yeah, and you had to sort of pass them around your mates at school, and you had to like stay up late at night to see the Red Triangle films on Channel 4.
Well,
I don't know about those. This is
you
deep knowledge.
No.
Red Triangle films.
Yeah, if you don't have a Red Triangle film.
That sounds like conspiracy theory.
This is the great thing about having an intergenerational podcast, is that we each have slightly different pop culture.
We can share porn throughout the generations.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So there was this thing that Channel 4 decided it was going to show some more sexual material. It wasn't pornography, but it was more sexual films. They could be late at night. And because people were a bit upset about this, they said, we'll put red triangles on the corner of the screen.
Oh.
It's my memory of it. I haven't thought about this for a while. I know that quite a lot of boys when I was growing up would stay up late to watch these things.
But that's so embarrassing, because everyone would have known they were doing it.
Well,
they'd have to watch downstairs and stay up for
oh
it.
yes, it'd be like TVs in your room or TVs downstairs. You wouldn't be watching it in the main room with your parents. You'd have to have a
Oh
separate-
yeah. Oh Claudia, no, that's not. we when I was a kid, we had a family computer. No one had their own computers. It was a scary time. All right.
That's so
This is
frightening.
before computers,
Yeah.
pretty much. We're
Yeah.
talking about just TV
Yeah,
sets.
people didn't have like TVs and computers in their rooms in like the 90s and the noughties. No. But the pink triangle is like a sign like for a sort of homosexuality. So did they could have like
Well,
the pink
triangle. We're getting
the
to
pink
Nazism
triangle
now.
films.
That pink triangle's what the gay people had to wear in the concentration camps, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
I think your obsession with Nazism.
Yeah, so we could have the the red triangle and the pink triangle. Was Red Shoe Diaries? That was what was on when I was a kid.
Oh, what was
with-
that?
David Duchovny.
Oh, David Duchovny has an interesting
Yeah, so this was
relationship to
like
Paul.
I think it was
Yeah.
just before X-Files. So I don't know. I guess he was quite struggling actor, but he did this kind of weird. It's kind of sort of film noir, kind of Raymond Chandler type thing, but with like tits in it occasionally. And so, you know, every 14-year-old boy was like, "There's a show that's got tits in it." Channel 5.
I mean, there's a really interesting episode of the X-Files where I think you've got like David Duchovny watching porn as a reference point. There's
If
obviously
you're
something
watching the
going
Red Shoe Diaries, that would be
something great.
yeah. Scully, it's got tits in it. The truth is out. All right, okay, let's end this podcast.
They did a final paragraph. It's my favorite paragraph.
Oh,
of
okay.
all.
Badil might well have begun to come full circle. I will complexify who I am, Badil says. We contain multitudes, and I am trying to be true to who I am. He is considering writing a book called The Male Gaze. I am not ashamed to like football. I am not ashamed to like pop music. I am not ashamed to be a heterosexual male.
But you're right. He does leave out. I'm not ashamed to love porn. So he
It's
obviously,
implied. That's what a heterosexual male is.
yeah. But yeah, this paragraph, it's all the pretentiousness. I mean, who the fuck says I will complexify who I am? Is complexify even a verb? And also, it's meaningless. Like
I'm
we
gonna
all
look up
we're all complicated. We all
No,
have-
Badil isn't. That's why he's got to complexify.
we
He's
contain
desperately trying to
multitudes.
complexify.
Daniel, do you think it sounds like a Kendall Roy quote?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean there's a man for you. You want to talk about men? Kendall Roy.
yeah.
Complexify is a verb, actually, Heather. So you've got a long way to go with your public intellectual. I'm afraid. Gonna have to put you on some courses. Yeah, I mean, or maybe just a few more pictures of you in a forest will probably cover it up. You know, either way.
There must be an e-learning module I can do how to become a public intellectual.
Yeah, or maybe we should set one up. We could do like a YouTube masterclass with Heather Mendick. All right, guys, too hot. Let's finish there.
Too hot.
Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for liking. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you if you sign up to the Patreon. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.